Imagine this. What if the very places designed to open our minds were, maybe subtly, trying to close them off to certain ideas?
That's a powerful thought.
It's actually the core accusation in a really explosive book from the 1950s, William F. Buckley Jr.'s God and Man at Yale.
Yes, that one definitely made waves.
It really did. Buckley basically argued that Yale, despite its prestigious history, was drifting. He claimed it was promoting collectivist and secular viewpoints, often at the expense of what he saw as its traditional Christian individualist foundation.
A pretty bold claim against his own alma mater.
Absolutely. And for you, someone interested in understanding the big ideas and forces shaping society, this book, well, it offers a really fascinating, though definitely controversial viewpoint. We're going to explore Buckley's arguments and the whole firestorm they ignited.
It's a debate with themes that still echo today, I think.
Definitely. And, to help you reflect further on complex topics like this one, check out Mindful Moments over on our YouTube channel. We use AI analysis to break down books and ideas, hopefully sparking your own critical thinking.
So, getting into Buckley's argument, he starts by suggesting Yale was maybe feeling a bit unsure of itself back then.
Unsure how?
Well, questioning its traditional identity, maybe losing some of its social standing compared to, say, Harvard. He even hints, rather provocatively, that it might be trying to find a new identity, perhaps as a haven for a specific social group.
Interesting. Setting the stage for a deeper critique, then.
Exactly. He uses that to frame his argument that a much bigger ideological shift was happening under the surface.
And a major flashpoint, maybe the major flashpoint, was his analysis of the economics textbooks being used at Yale.
Oh, yes. That drew a lot of fire. Critics accused him, quite strongly, of misrepresenting the authors, twisting their words, quoting out of context.
Making them sound like something they weren't.
Precisely. Frank Ashburn's review in the Saturday Review is particularly scathing on this point. But Buckley, he pushed back.
How did he defend himself?
He pointed directly to quotes. For instance, he quoted Theodore Morgan's textbook saying, and this sounds very free enterprise-oriented, "Government should not do anything which individuals or voluntary associations can more efficiently do for themselves."
Okay, that does sound pretty aligned with individualism.
Right. But then Buckley highlights the apparent contradiction. Because this same Professor Morgan, later on, advocated for policies that seemed to run completely counter to that statement.
Like what specifically?
We're talking really progressive income taxes. Maybe 75 to 99% on incomes over $100,000, which was huge money then.
Wow.
Also getting rid of the capital gains exemption, imposing really heavy inheritance taxes, nationalizing monopolies, universal Social Security, even government guarantees of full employment.
So policies that even in 1950 would have been considered pretty far left.
Absolutely. And Buckley's point was, how could critics say he was distorting things by calling Morgan's overall viewpoint collectivist when he was proposing these kinds of policies? He seemed genuinely astonished by that criticism.
It really highlights a fundamental disagreement about what those economic ideas actually meant in practice.
It does. Buckley used this interesting analogy to capture it. He compared it to a married couple who agree the wife decides minor issues and the husband decides major ones, but they never actually have any major disagreements.
Meaning,
you could profess belief in free enterprise, the major principle, but if all your minor day-to-day policy proposals lean towards collectivism, what does that profession actually mean?
So he saw a disconnect between the stated philosophy and the practical teachings.
That was exactly his concern, that the underlying messages, the actual substance being taught, could be subtly pushing students towards collectivism, even if the professors sometimes, paid lip service to individualism.
And how did Yale itself react when the book came out?
Oh, the reaction was immediate and quite strong. The Yale Daily News, the student paper, ran a whole series with 6 professors responding.
And were they supportive?
Not really. Only one found much to commend in the book, apparently. The paper's own editorial was pretty dismissive, suggesting readers wouldn't find the book very appealing.
So a generally negative reception from that quarter.
Yes. And the Yale Alumni magazine also got involved, addressing the controversy. Professor Green also weighed in critically in the Daily News.
But wasn't there a counter voice among the faculty?
There was. Professor Wimsatt offered a notably different and quite strong perspective. He argued forcefully for the importance of confronting ideas you believe are fundamentally wrong, even within your own institution.
Pushing back against complacency.
Exactly. He brought up historical examples like suppressing scientific ideas, or the Baconian heresy, he called it, or even failing to confront things like genocide, to argue that silence isn't always golden, especially in academia.
That's a powerful argument. It reminds me a bit of another case Buckley discussed, the A.P. Smith Company situation.
Ah, the donation to Princeton.
Yeah, right. The company donated money, and some stockholders sued, basically saying, hey, that's our money. You can't just give it away for philanthropy.
And the company's defense in court was quite revealing, wasn't it?
It really was. They argued they weren't doing it purely out of goodwill. They essentially said, we do this philanthropy for the sake of selling more valves and hydrants.
A very utilitarian justification for corporate giving. Good PR equals good business.
So Princeton and the company won the case, but Buckley suggests this victory maybe came at a cost.
How so?
That it sort of cemented this idea that even academic support or academic freedom itself could be viewed through the lens of corporate self-interest rather than, say, a commitment to truth or higher values.
It definitely raises questions about the motivations and pressures influencing universities, doesn't it?
Which ties back to another core part of Buckley's argument, the role of Yale's trustees and alumni.
Yes, he saw them as the ultimate customers of the education Yale provided.
And he posed a direct question to them. Do you want the university teaching Keynesian interventionism, or do you want it teaching the values of Christian individualism that he believed were foundational to Yale?
His argument was that the faculty are, or should be, responsible to the trustees, and the trustees, in turn, are responsible to the alumni, the ones who support the institution. Responsible for what? For transmitting specific wisdom and values.
That's a view that runs pretty counter to the common understanding of academic freedom, though.
Oh, absolutely. The dominant view then, and largely now, is that academic freedom means faculty have the right to teach according to their expertise and conscience, as long as they're, professionally competent and honest, not dictated by trustees or alumni preferences.
But Buckley wasn't buying that.
Not entirely. He was deeply committed to his cause. He framed it very starkly. His side was right, and they, the proponents of secularism and collectivism, were wrong. He saw it as a fundamental battle over educational philosophy.
A battle between Christianity and atheism, individualism, and collectivism.
Those were the core conflicts for him. And he gave specific examples of faculty perspectives on religion to back this up.
Such as?
Well, he cited Professor Goodenough in the religion department, who apparently described himself as 80% atheist and 20% agnostic.
That's quite a statement from someone in a religion department.
Indeed. He also raised concerns about what he called the bigoted atheism of another instructor, Mr. Turner, and its potential effect on students.
And beyond individual professors.
He pointed to the sociology department, suggesting the prevailing view there treated religion more as a cultural artifact, a phenomenon, or even, Marx's opiate of the masses.
What about Professor Kennedy? His approach to religion also caused a stir, didn't it?
Yes, though defenders argued it was his right to hold his beliefs, and that maybe shaking the beliefs of students could actually be beneficial for their intellectual development. A classic academic freedom defense.
And he mentioned Professor Calhoun in philosophy?
Right. Calhoun apparently noted a lack of what Buckley termed an antitoxin, a strong counter-argument to the prevailing secular or agnostic views in some departments, suggesting an intellectual imbalance.
Buckley even drills down to seemingly small details, like the undergraduate deacons.
Ah, yes, the fact that some students serving as ushers in the Battelle Chapel were apparently atheists or agnostics. The Yale Daily News even ran an editorial titled, "All God's Chillin' Our Shoe" about it.
Seems minor, but for Buckley.
For Buckley, it was symbolic. Another small sign, he felt, of the university drifting from its religious moorings.
He also looked at extracurricular life as reflecting these broader trends.
Yes, he pointed to the Yale Political Union, noting its voting record often leaned towards what he saw as collectivist positions.
Can you give examples?
He mentioned resolutions supporting things like socialism, socialized medicine, Henry Wallace's policies, federal hydroelectric power, Truman's Fair Deal, even the British Labour government at the time.
And the National Students Association.
Similar critique there. Buckley argued that despite claiming to be just a service organization, its political agenda was clearly left-leaning, citing specific legislation it supported. He saw it as more evidence of the dominant ideology on campus.
Buckley didn't stop at the curriculum or student life, did he? He also looked at university governance.
Right. He criticized the selection process for the Yale Corporation, the governing board, saying there wasn't enough focus on where candidates actually stood on educational philosophy.
As if their views on the core mission didn't matter much.
That was his implication. And he felt the university council, which was supposed to be a link to alumni opinion, didn't really have much teeth, not much power to hold the university accountable to alumni views.
So let's circle back to academic freedom, because that seems central. How did Buckley define it?
Well, he argued it wasn't some monolithic, absolute concept. He pointed out quite pragmatically that universities already have standards, character qualifications for faculty.
It's not like they'd hire just anyone.
Exactly. He used a slightly odd hypothetical. Imagine a scholar whose great passion was the sentimental poetry of Joyce Kilmer. Buckley suggested Yale probably wouldn't hire that person, implying there were already some limits, even if based on taste or perceived intellectual weight.
So limits exist already, they just aren't always acknowledged or principled.
That was his point. He also argued, probably correctly, that Yale wouldn't likely hire a professor who openly scorned democracy. So since limits do exist, his argument was essentially, why not make those limits clearer and align them with the values the institution claims to uphold, specifically the Christian and individualist values favored by, in his view, the trustees and alumni?
He wanted to narrow the acceptable range of viewpoints for faculty.
Essentially, yes, to reflect what he believes should be the core mission and values of Yale.
And he didn't seem to believe that just letting all ideas compete freely would automatically lead to the best outcome.
No, he explicitly rejected the idea that truth will out all by itself. He felt truth needed active champions. He pointed to history. Look at World War I, Russia, Nazi Germany. Plenty of examples, he argued, where truth didn't prevail on its own, where falsehood or bad ideas won out because they had stronger backing or faced weaker opposition. Truth needs defending.
So who did he see as the ultimate defenders, the ultimate overseers for Yale?
The alumni. He placed the ultimate responsibility on them. They were the ones, in his view, who should demand that Yale formulate a clear educational philosophy, a credo based on active Christianity and individualism.
And that the university shouldn't keep faculty who actively worked against those principles.
Correct. He wasn't calling for dogma necessarily, but for a university with a clear purpose, a modern, free, enlightened university with a purpose, as he put it, that was aligned with the values of the people who ultimately sustained it.
It's fascinating stuff. And, the core questions Buckley raised back then about the purpose of higher education, the balance between tradition and change, the role of values in the classroom, they haven't really gone away, have they?
Not at all. They were still incredibly relevant today, maybe even more so in our complex world.
Definitely food for thought. And if you want to keep exploring these kinds of big, thought-provoking ideas, remember to check out Mindful Moments on YouTube, and of course, explore our podcasts for more discussions like this one.
It's always valuable to engage with challenging perspectives.
Absolutely. So please, subscribe to stay informed about future explorations. If you found this discussion valuable, share it with others who might be interested. You might also consider purchasing the book itself. There's usually a link in the show notes if you want to dive even deeper into Buckley's original arguments.
And wrestle with them yourself.
Exactly. And most importantly, keep asking questions. Keep thinking critically about the ideas and the forces that shape our institutions and our world.